It's easy to take football managers for granted these days. They are the most important men in the most important sport. In the course of this 6-part series, I'm going to look at the history of this managerial fixation, where it came from and where it might be leading us, and also the ways in which this uniquely British passion for the man in the suit and the padded overcoat has defined and perhaps ultimately overshadowed our football. The crowd was an important thing in early football and hugely important in the rise of the manager. No other form of public entertainment had ever gathered such huge swathes of people together. Crowds grew from just under 1 million in the first league season to close to 9 million by 1920. Football simply opened its gates and the people came rolling in. In the process, football became a volatile arena. This was an era of general strikes, of pickets and of class war. Among club directors there was a sense that a buffer was needed, a dispensable layer of ballast against the ire of the crowd. An obvious candidate presented himself. It remains a central irony in the manager's story, but his first real high-profile public act was to be sacked. Early managerial sackings came in a rush. Coventry City had 11 managers in the first 20 years of the 20th century. And for a while in the 1960s, this tally of managerial sackings became a national obsession, another barometer of human achievement like the arms race or the 100-metre world record. This sense of jobbing instability still underpins even the modern superstar manager. At the top end, it's even perhaps a source of some of his power. By the turn of the millennium, the manager was still playing to the crowd, but by now the crowd itself had mutated. It no longer wore a flat cap or waggled a rattle. Instead, the crowd had transformed itself into the 24-hour rolling news cycle, the global TV audience, and the media-led genesis of a new breed of travelling Uber manager. The elevation of Ruud Gullit to player coach at Chelsea in 1995 brought the new breed of super-rich superstar player into management for the first time. With his air of Eurotrash playboy glitz and the early adoption of the uniform of elegantly cut black Italian formal wear, Gullit blazed a trail. This new type of manager smelt of homogenised international luxury, factory-fresh leather upholstery, private beach and high-end gastronomy. His soundtrack was the delicate tinklings of some sky-high Dubai piano bar. Like most new things in football, the appearance of the Uber manager was largely about money and power. Following the Bosman ruling in 1995, the modern footballer was rich, independent and mobile. And so at the highest level managers would attempt to outflash and outfame their cosseted charges. Mourinho remains the most striking example. At Chelsea he looked and dressed like his players' more intelligent, better-looking older brother. He drove a cooler car. He even earned more. In 2005 he was voted the world's 6th sexiest man. A Mourinho waxwork was unveiled at Madame Tussauds, and a film of his life rumoured to be in the offing, with George Clooney pencilled in for the lead role. Mourinho claimed he kept such a high profile to deflect attention and therefore pressure from his players. This might well have been the case, but he also appeared to be enjoying himself a great deal. Foreign managers had first arrived en masse in the early 1990s, just as English football was in the process of being quietly prized open by EU labour laws and the new B-Sky-B-inflected world order. Having said that, foreign managers were not entirely a new thing. Sammy Chung, who was half Chinese, had managed Ipswich and Watford in the 1960s, and Eddie Firmani, a South African who also went and played in Italy, would manage Charlton with some success in the 1970s. It wasn't until Joseph Venglosh at Aston Villa in 1990, a softly spoken, white-haired Slovakian doctor of philosophy, that we saw a born and bred foreign national managing a First Division club. Venglosh left after one season, bewildered, among many other things, by the Anglo-Saxon sportsman's capacity for drinking lager.
I think they took advantage of him, didn't they, Villa? But he was the first, really, and that didn't work at all.
Why do you think that didn't work?
I don't think he ever really plugged in. You know, he never really took the temperature. But I think he was a very good coach.
These were still the early days. Before long, Ozzy Ardiles would appear at Spurs, bringing his Samba-style football with him and producing a terribly unbalanced team that was heading for a farcical relegation when he was sacked. English football was ready for Wenger. Swollen with a newfound sense of its own importance, it had money and it had exposure. What it needed was vindication, and above all some class. As ever, it would look to the manager.
You know, when you got Ray Parlour and Tony Adams and Martin Kieran and people like that, who are your typical English player and the way they've been brought up, and they were, you know, loved a pint and, you know, go out for pie and mash and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden he's bringing in a diet and fitness coaches and psychologists. It's, if they can do it and take it on board and be just as successful and become even better players than they were under Wenger, then obviously he was working.
In his first 12 years in English football, Wenger was called the Professor 703 times in the UK press. This is his default setting, the super brain.
He's able to cope with all aspects of the club, whether it's the media, whether it's the medical, whether it's the public relations side. He knows certainly how to produce or how to encourage what I call quality football.
Housed in their great glass and steel inverted spaceship of the stadium, Wenger's Arsenal have come to represent some fluid, unfenced vision of the future. In 2004, his title-winning 11 was drawn from 11 different nationalities. This is the Premier League product in its clearest incarnation, a game refined by the economist's grand dream of the endless market, and rooted in nothing more than a sense of its own portable excellence. This is the Wenger creed, a sinuous global meritocracy, with broccoli, and maybe just one glass of wine with dinner. If Wenger points us forward, then Alex Ferguson leads us back, and also into the present. Nobody can match his achievements at Manchester United. The modern era is the Ferguson era, which might seem slightly strange, because if anything, Ferguson stands as an emblem of things past, of old virtues rather than new. As time has passed, Ferguson has come to resemble some National Trust tribute exhibit, a glittering managerial theme park. Postmodern rather than old-fashioned, he has a little bit of everything. There's that sense of deep Glaswegian managerial authenticity, the salty phrase-making of a Shankly, and the Iron Man appeal of a Cullis. Just looking at him, ancient and empurpled on the touchline, we even sense a deep connection to the secretary with his watch chain and his rising sense of futility. Ferguson has the lot. Right now he is every manager, it's all in him, everything from A to Z. This is a feat of total management that will never be repeated, mainly because other things have begun to happen, and the manager as we know him is in the process of being recast, his authority undermined by a new breed of global supercapitalist. The real transformational power now lies with the boundless finance of the billionaire owner, below who we find the off-the-peg PLC business model, a hierarchy of finance directors and chief executives, all of which leaves little room for English football's traditional and frankly rather odd managerial reimagining of the mill or the jam factory. And suddenly, in a certain light, the manager looks old. This latest threat to his preeminence may have emerged from the steepling riptides of international finance, but in fact it's simply the reawakening of his oldest adversary, the director. Before long, we may even look back and say that the manager has had his time, that this was a 20th century story. A story of class, of ambition, and of a cult of personality that may, even now, be in the process of passing.